it sounded like, because he said like, yeah, there's no way I would have approached the city. Like, I think those bridges are burned, so. I still want to know how he pulled that off. Like, I can't believe anyone would. Then I asked him about the bankruptcy, if that would affect the project at all, and he got persnickety.
I saw Mr. Nutting. Ooh, I saw Mr. Nutting at an event earlier, so I'm assuming he's going to get here. So.
I don't remember where I got this stuff. I don't remember where I got this stuff.
It is
A
he.
while ago when he like did the original like kind of explanation.
Motion to adjourn would be in order.
I did not expect it. I mean, I expected it, but.
Ready on the left? Ready on the right? Very good. The appointed hour having arrived, I call the Monday, August 5 meeting of the Park and Recreation Committee to order. And the first order of business would be to hear any public comment or suggestions from any of our guests. Anybody got anything to say today? Very good. Approval of minutes for July 1 and July 23, and I don't know if we could take them separately or together, however you choose. Motion to approve. Mr. Gisselman, second by Mr. Nutting. Any questions, comments, concerns? Very good. Any questions about it? I've asked Jody, I thought she did an excellent job. I did ask her to add either a sentence or a little more wording on the July 23 meeting. After I asked how the groundwater sample is taken, I thought it should be, information should be included that a well point is driven down into the boring to groundwater level to get the sample. So just so that was clear. With that change, is that change acceptable to the motioner and the second? Very good. Hearing no other, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, hearing none. Very good. We need to wrangle a date for September, and we're looking at September 3, right?
Correct. Yes, I reached out to Mr. Lassa because that was one of the main topics we wanted to discuss. Originally, we were going to discuss it at this meeting, but with the short time frame and wanting to actually survey the park to get the actual park boundaries, it looks like September is going to be the date when we talk about further testing of Riverside Park. I reached out to him and asked him if September 3rd or September 9th would work, September 3rd being the Tuesday after Labor Day, September 9th being the following Monday. We do have some meetings that are on those two nights, so he cannot make the September 9th meeting. So the one option, if we want him there, would be September 3rd. However, we do have the Economic Development Committee at 5:15. So, and I think, Mr. Neal, you're on that committee. So we could have our meeting from 4 to 5:15, or if you have the ability to possibly move that back 15 minutes or so, we could have a little bit of extra time.
Probably got flexibility.
Okay. So then we could meet for sure from 4 to 5:30 or so, if that works for
You
everybody.
don't need a motion on that, do you?
We probably should, because we'll put it on the agenda as the official next meeting date.
Okay. Somebody would like to move that we reschedule our next meeting to 4 p.m. September 3rd? Mr. Neal, second by Mr. Nutting. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Thank you. And got that taken care of. The forestry specifications manual, I will turn this over to Jamie, but I do know that part of the impetus was from Alderman Neal, after a concern in his district with a tree falling on a truck.
It wasn't my district, but it was some.
Oh, okay, your turf. So you may have some of the questions, so go ahead.
All right, thank you, members of the committee. This manual is put together as a result of some other work that we were doing. So Mr. Lindman was working on his street reconstruction project specifically in TID District 6 this year on some tree planting areas that we want to plant more trees and some guidelines for how we want to plant with the street reconstruction. So that kind of led to the fact that we have a lot of policies and procedures that we've worked off of with our city forester in the departments, but nothing has been, other than the city ordinance, nothing is documented. So in order to put some guidelines together that will help us determine how we go ahead planting that district and subsequent districts after that in other areas of the city, we worked with a consultant that's here tonight, if you have any questions. But we worked with Jason Foley from, I'm going to say this, Canopy Forest Consulting. He's going to kill me when I get home. To update the specifications manual for the city, putting all those policies together on, just so we have a document that both the engineering department and the city forester can work off, where we're all working on the same guidelines and same knowledge. And really, this is set forth by this committee as to what our policies and procedures are with the city. So this forestry specifications manual has been reviewed by our engineering staff as well as our city forester and our department. Basically going through it, it is just a set of specifications. It's not an ordinance by any means. It's a guideline that we'll be following. It looks at tree planting standards, what types of trees we want to plant, what size trees we want to plant, where we want to plant them, as well as locations for new plantings. So we'll look at whether or not it has overhead lines, whether it's in an area where there's signs or streetlights, in a visual triangle for an intersection. It does have in the back some appendices on some desirable species and sizes of different trees and how big they get to know where they're going to be planted throughout the city. And then there's a tree protection policy, which will address some of our, when we're doing street reconstructions or any other construction, even in the park. Like one of the areas, Yankee Park, we're having the construction of the Y right now. There should have been some tree protection fence in there. So that's something not only in the street projects that we'll use, but in our park projects as well. But that's where we'll protect the root system of a tree. And if we can't protect a root system of a tree, there will be some guidelines to follow and some policies and procedures that we'll follow as staffing, tree removal policies, pruning standards, and then some other miscellaneous practices such as fertilization, spraying. We do talk in here too about diseased trees. We do have some, looking at this now, I think there is some areas where we still need to work on from our city planning perspective of, if a subdivision is coming in, we'll need to put some guidelines, maybe our zoning code about how much trees, if they have a fully wooded lot, how many trees do we want them to be able to remove without having to replace trees? How many trees should they replace based on what their removal? Is there a cost to that? That's not in this manual per se. It's slightly referenced, but it is something I've mentioned to our planning department as well that we should work on once these are set. So with that, I can answer any questions that you might have. This is a start. We're not asking for approval of this tonight. We're just asking for your comments, and then we'll take those back and do any updates to it. And then one other thing I want to add before we get to Mr. Neal is that as far as staffing goes, it's something that Mr. Lindman and I are working on between the engineering staff and our city forester and our forestry staff, is during a street reconstruction project, who is going to go out and review the damage that might have been done or the work or how it's set up ahead of time. We're working on that staffing and how we would make people available to make sure that we are able to make sure that the tree protection fence is in place before any work is done, and then that after the work is done, that no further damage to the trees were done, and if they were, assessing the tree, is it still stable, does it need to be removed, that sort of thing. So, Mr. Neal?
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad this has come up. Just a little bit of background. I think the discussion sort of started, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or something. I noticed as I was walking through my neighborhood, there was quite a bit of sidewalk replacement going on. And at the time, I wasn't aware if that was a vendor doing the work or if it was city people doing the work. I just knew that the sidewalks were being, this one was Xed and this one wasn't, this one was, and they take out slabs and they put in new. And as I walked along on my street, I noticed a tree or two, a really large, mature and healthy tree whose main roots in the sidewalk had been sheared completely through, to make way for, the new sidewalk. And I just thought, well, that's going to kill the tree, isn't it, or something? And I brought up my concerns, and that maybe kind of sort of led to these discussions on a broader scope. But the discussion then was, when you do that, well, you've just, and Mr. Duncanson, your predecessor, said, when you do that to a tree, you're taking its anchor away on one side, so if you get a straight line wind coming from that other side, down it's going to go. So this is a safety issue, this is a possible litigation and liability issue, and most recently, this constituent that contacted me sent me photos and whatnot. Their vehicle, which was parked on the street legally, was smushed by a very large tree. And right next to that tree was a brand-new sidewalk, all still, I think there's still ribbons around it. And they took photos, there was a close-up photo of a very large root that had just been sawn right through. And of course, that's on the top of the tree, because that was on the sidewalk, and it went to the street with a little bit of wind and smashed their car, multi-thousands of dollars worth of damage. And now it's an issue that the city has with that citizen. And it's going to be, insurance people and lawyers and every other darn thing is going to be a result of this. And this is going to continue unless we do what we said a couple of years ago, which was we're going to protect our street trees. We're going to alter the way we manage work. We had the guru from Milwaukee come and talk to us about measures they take to even circumvent trees a little bit. There's that, we talked about the engineering mindset, which means just, straight line no matter what. Get from here to there, straight line, and damn anything that's in the way. But we know that trees are valuable assets, and that guru, and we agreed with him wholeheartedly, said, yeah, there's ways to we're just going to go around that, all right? Your sidewalk might go from 4 feet to 3.5 feet or 3 feet for that, couple of sections, and on you go. There's a lot of reasons why we should do this: aesthetic, financial, safety, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was kind of under the impression that we were probably heading that way. Yeah, well, that's because it's not really it's not in a book, and it's not in our contracts with vendors, so there's nothing there to say this is the way to do it. I mean, all we can really rely on is if a vendor is doing our work, is that they have the common sense not to do this. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but it's being done. So we have to lay down what our expectations are, and they have to be upheld by anybody doing work for us. If nothing else, but to ensure safety of people, somebody out walking or driving or on a bike, or having their truck completely crushed by a tree. And to protect our valuable asset, which is our canopy, which we know is something that is part of our reason for being here as a committee. So just going through this real quickly, I'm not really seeing that specific concern being addressed. And I think that has to be a good-sized section in here about what our philosophy and standards, best practices are to protect mature trees when we're doing curb repair or sidewalk replacement, street work, all that sort of thing, because it's a must. So thank you for your indulgence.
Yeah, and I can, maybe Mr. Lemon could speak to it a little bit further, but I think when it comes to what we want to do during street reconstruction and projects, even if it's in our parks, is we'll try to, if it's identified as a mature, healthy tree that we would like to protect, everything as far as what we can do will be done. a lot of our sidewalks we found are at the very back of that right-of-way from the street right now. So if you have that tree and you're redoing a sidewalk, then it may be a matter of, if we wanted to save that tree and going around it, it would be quite a process from the cities to get additional land, I guess, from that homeowner. Mr. Lemon, if I'm correct.
Well,
But,
That's not it at all.
well, that's
It's
just one,
just-
that's just one
That is an
idea.
option, yeah.
You
If
you
wanted
just
to get
simply
in-
carve around it, and you don't widen it into the property owner.
could
but
narrow
you
the
just- You just
sidewalk
make
for
a
a
little
moment.
loop around that root structure.
Yeah.
It's simple. That's how we thought we were going to do it. And why is it still continuing to happen is the question.
Yeah, I think first we have to, kind of come up with the procedures on how we're going to take a look at the trees. Right now, we've been focusing on our street reconstruction projects. Yeah, typically we have sidewalk replacements every year and, and trying to get everything in place with the staff that we have has been difficult. I think we have been making some improvements, especially on the street reconstruction projects. I would agree with you, though, that we still have a ways to go. Keep in mind that Milwaukee took over 20 years to put something in place. I know it's been 3 years. I think the specifications is a start on, where we want to go, how we want to plant the trees. There are some challenges when we get into, somehow we're going to have to put something in place as far as determining when we do replace sidewalk in certain sections. Do we narrow it? Do we ramp it? What are those cost implications? And who's going to make the determination whether we can cut the roots or not and what roots we can cut? And so we're not quite there yet. We are working on that and having discussions internally in engineering as well as with our consultants. So, we hope that come this fall, we'll have a better, as we move forward with procedures, something more cut and dried in place as we move forward for next construction season.
I was going to say, we've got some breathing room now because there's not going to be any more sidewalk work done
Right.
between now and
Yeah.
next season, correct?
Yeah,
But before that season, we really need to nail this down.
yeah,
Seeing that photo of that truck, is just, it was pretty devastating for them, I'm sure, and preventable,
well, we assume it is. I
Yeah.
mean, there were trees down all over the city
yeah.
because of that.
But
So,
I think just seeing that root, though,
Well,
it wasn't like it
okay.
was torn, it was
Understand.
cleaved.
Right, yeah.
So, that's,
Yeah.
it's not going to look good for us
Mm-hmm.
at any rate, so, yeah.
Okay,
I noticed, Eric, that when there's sidewalk work being done, the tree protection zone doesn't kick in. But it sounds like there was some language that care would be taken to not raise a lot of hob with the roots that are discovered under that sidewalk.
yeah, I think that's where, like in engineering, we lack that expertise to make that determination. Because right now, how our sidewalk replacement projects work is we determine what sidewalks, need to be replaced, and it's on a complaint basis. Are they trip hazards, liabilities for us? And that's how we determine what needs to be replaced. And then we send those areas to our street crews, and they're the ones who actually cut the roots. That's part of the other puzzle too, is if we're going to continue to cut those roots, then, we need to start doing some additional training for our crews when they cut. But we also need to have somebody, I think, on staff, and staffing-wise somehow, to help make those determinations on what we're going to do. And so I think that those are some of the next steps, as Jamie alluded to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the ramping potential might have to kick in sometimes.
And grinding where that's a viable alternative, too.
It needs to be done right now.
Yeah.
There's no excuse. This is what we want. So who's ever walking that sidewalk from city should say, okay, when this thing is removed, if we see a root there, we're going to carve around it. We're going to make an oval around that, not encroaching on the property, but that's just a given what we need and what we want.
Sure.
I shouldn't hear any other.
Well, I do think, though, that, there are some potential areas where that tree might have to be removed, so.
Well, that time will come later, but at the moment.
Right. But, just depending on, again, on the inspection of that tree, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, so there will be some instances where trees will be removed. We won't be able to save them.
You know, given that we are the stewards of our canopy, if you will, from a official point of view, our number one priority is to ensure that any tree that deserves to be there stays there. We know that there's going to be considerations like a tree that's in bad health, a tree that presents a clear and present danger, or one that's overly mature and we just want to start the next generation. But it can't be, the determination cannot be what's easy for engineering and what's easy for crews. It's not what's easy. That we just can't have that kind of thing, oh, it's in the way, it's got to go. Because if it's in the way and it's a good, healthy, mature, beautiful tree, it has to stay.
Amen.
Agreed.
There's no reason for it to go. And that's, I mean, I'll dig my heels in till hell freezes over on that one.
And we're in agreement there.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I think removal is a last resort. Yep.
Yep.
So,
So I think in the section that we can talk about adding a paragraph or a policy of what you're discussing here is in that section 5 where we talk about the tree protection policies and the reconstruction or widening of streets. It's even got a section on sidewalk replacement. We can talk about language that we can bring back to you about, what our philosophy is. Because like you said, there will be instances where we'll do an assessment and decide if the tree can't stay, well, then that's maybe something we bring back to you and just to say, hey, this is our plans, this is what we're doing, this is why I can't say. I mean, if it's an ash tree, we want to take it out and we'll put something else in there and stuff like that. So we can work on, another 5.1.2 and put that kind of guideline in there of what our philosophy will be. And then it will be on a case-by-case basis and to determine, if it can be done or what the tree species is, what the health of the tree is. But by all means, that would be, yes, what we would want to follow.
yeah, we can definitely put more detail in there for you to review and give us some more comments back.
Yep.
Okay.
Do we have anything, like today, do we have anything in writing resembling this, or has it been kind of by the seat of our pants?
No, it's been basically, this is how we've always done it. So, we've continued on. We've made some minor modifications to what we're doing, maybe a little bit more review, but nothing that would really, warrant being significant that would
Okay.
help us out. So
Yeah,
this is,
I'm glad
this
to
is a
see
great
this,
start.
because, especially because I think people were involved in that conversation that day with the tree cop guy from Milwaukee. We kind of all assumed that this has all been taken care of.
Right,
but
no,
it hadn't,
not
so-
yet. It's still in progress. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, there is some, at least in my neighborhood, there's several instances of where special care has been taken for specific trees. There's one on Adams Street where there's a giant silver maple, and the sidewalk, literally, on that edge goes around it. And I see that in more than one instance. There's a house on McIndoe between 9th and 10th on the south side, that there's two, arches around trees. One's around the stump of a tree that's no longer there, and one's around a tree that is still there. So, I mean, there's precedent for it. I don't know what processes went into play, or if there was like incursion into, I know on Adams Street, there was no incursion into the private property. It was simply going around the tree, the bottom
Yeah.
of the tree. On McIndoe, there might have been some cooperation with the
Did that look like it was
resident.
done long ago?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I do think from our staffing perspective too, we've realized with me coming on last year and Eric's been here a couple of years now, is that we've realized that between engineering staff and the forestry staff who's out maintaining the trees, we just need some more communication as well. If we have on our list that something's being removed because of something, we need to coordinate to see whether or not there's a street reconstruction happening in that area. And there hasn't been in the past a whole lot of discussion. There's been some, and our city forester has reviewed some plans, but there hasn't been as much. So I think Eric and I, have it in our site that we are going to continue to talk about our street trees and coordinate that so that we know what we're maintaining, they know what they're reconstructing and working on. And if we have that person, whether it's existing staff or somebody else that can work on those street reconstruction projects and be even more of a conduit between our maintenance staff that's out doing the regular pruning and day-to-day work, it would be that much easier for us.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. I like we're jumping all around here, but I did like early on seeing that the specifications will apply to contractors as well as city employees. So that would be something contractor would be given at the time of the bidding process and saying, if you get this bid, these are the procedures that we would like you to stick with. I think that's great. There was another, just as a kind of a nitty-gritty thing, on page 5, there's a thing about the responsibility for watering the street trees, and that the property owner is asked to help water the street trees, and I'm wondering if there's going to be like a printed card stuffed in the door or something saying, we just put a new tree out in front of your house, give it, run the hose out there once in a while, or,
Well, I think that's part of the plan too, is a lot more public outreach before we do these. And so, we're taking a look, hopefully, start doing more ahead of time. And then those residents that are either losing a tree or something is going to be happening in front of their property, there would be door hangers and notices and different things, and trying to get them to be part of the process. That's been missing too, that connection with the public, which is another reason, like especially in our street reconstruction projects, why we'd like to get that out the year before we actually do the construction, where right now, that isn't happening. So we just, there are many things that we have to improve on with this process, and that would be one of them, would be the communication with the public and those people that are being affected by the removal of the trees, or even, new plantings. If we decide to put new plantings in, we'd provide them notice ahead of time, and, and ask if they're willing to do some watering. We could provide them a bag to put on there, and they could just fill the bag every once in a while, and,
I hear you're saying we could. I'd like to hear you say we will. That should it should take place from this day forward.
Okay. It'll be in part of our, process and our
You've got the minutes, and
policy.
you've got the recording, that everything that you've said should take place from here on forward.
Okay.
It's
We
as
do.
simple as that.
We have some opportunities to
Yeah.
do that coming up.
If I might also interject, page 8, my pet peeve here is undesirable street trees. You knew I was going to come to that one.
I did, yes.
Where's your list of undesirable trees? It's just
It's in the
this is-
back, appendix.
All right. I'm hoping that the word linden is on that list. And there's so many lindens in this city, and they aren't being pruned, one. They just dangle down, and they're brushing your head as you're walking underneath them on the sidewalks now, especially take a look at Fifth Avenue, 600 block of Fifth Avenue. It's unacceptable. Now, they get a crew out there to lop off, and they just droop down. They're not like a maple that goes out like this. And heaven forbid any lindens get planted on First Avenue with this in construction, or Thomas Street,
you want to talk about that, or?
or Town Line Road.
Yeah.
There better be a nice colorful tree that looks pretty, lilacs, maples, whatever, not a linden. Trust me. Send them all to Weston or Schofield, whatever.
Well, one thing we are trying to do with this, and with our forestry staff and with the inventory of our urban forests, is to make sure we have a diverse canopy throughout the city and not too much of any one species. So linden are right up there right now to be, at their percentage. So we're going to look at balancing that. They're not on our undesirable species list, but I hear you loud and clear. We also do have to work on, just as our processes go, we have an opportunity with some staffing changes to work on how we go about our pruning schedules and stuff like that. Right now, we have 4 arborists who are working on our entire city of 30,000 street trees. And so our process of pruning, we have a storm. Let's hope the winds don't pick up to 60 mile an hour like they're supposed to tonight, because that will put our crews back another week for all the trees that fall down. But, they try to keep on a schedule, and right now, we're just behind because of our staffing. But that's something we're working on, and we will keep that in
The
mind.
canopy of the linden doesn't even look pretty. It grows fast, it's like a weed. And then it just drops all year long. Look at the Garfield, Second Avenue, Garfield and Second Avenue. Someone decided to plant 12 lindens in that area. It's a snowstorm of seeds and then branches just dropping all the time. And look at the storm gutters. The storm gutters are clouded with this crud.
I agree.
Who's going to clean that up? Send a street sweeper there. It's a mess.
You should have been on the
No,
Southeast Side Facebook page a couple of weeks ago when people were singing the praises of the lovely linden/basswood and how great it was and what a wonderful aromas that it sends out to neighbors far and wide. So anyway, opinions differ. I did have a question. There was wording on, I'm not sure what page it was, but it talked about the terrace of unimproved streets. What's the terrace? Is that like what would have been a tree bank if there was a curb?
Yeah, so that would typically be where the boulevard, behind the curb, right? That's where you're, yeah,
If there was a curb, it would be behind there.
correct.
Okay.
That right away, that's outside of the street.
Okay. And I think I've had an explanation of it, but one of the, it very plainly says that you can't use a backhoe to cut roots. And I understand that the reason for that is because it's, it leaves a uneven, rough edge, but why is that better than just whacking it? And maybe our guest forester could
Yes.
address that.
So, when the backhoe excavates, it's gonna just tear and rip on those roots, and you don't really know where the damage is. You're gonna be able to see it right where it's exposed, but it could be more damage further down. So we wanna see, with a lopping shears, a chainsaw, something that's gonna make a nice cut.
So the rest of the root then wouldn't be jerked around and
Right,
moved and rattled,
Displaced.
and you just lop it off and
exactly.
a little more surgical. Okay. Very good. Any other questions for our experts? For John, I guess. Thank you.
We will be making the changes that we referenced tonight and the input that we've received. If you have any other input, just send it either to me or to Eric, probably to me, and then I can forward it on, and we'll all work on it together to get that updated, so.
Yeah, I do think, and you made a good point, it's just going to be a matter of starting to work together and who's going to do what when and
Yep.
all that good stuff. Okay, I think it's back to you on the riverbank cleanup.
Yes, so this is also more of an informational item that was asked to be brought forward for discussion, and I put an update, I gotta find it now, on what we are doing and what we're working on. So, where did it go? All right. So what we're doing so far, we've started now with our seasonal staff that's on staff. We have a full-time seasonal staff at the River Life Park every day that's supposed to be working all the way from Kickbush Plaza all the way to Bridge Street. And so throughout the day, as they're working on, cleaning the parks and the trails, they're also picking up debris. So that's going on now through November. All of this is going on until the snow flies and we can't see anything anymore. We have until at least the end of the year that the water will be down. So as long as it doesn't snow, we'll be picking up trash. We've done some herbicide treatments along the area for vegetation control of unwanted species. We'll continue to work on that. And then we are working with the DNR. We haven't gotten official approval yet to cut off or to reduce the heights of any of the deadheads by the boating area, but that is our goal, is to get, we know we can't remove them out of the riverbank because we can't disturb that soil, but we are going to try to get them as short as we can so that when the water comes up and we have our boating facilities back in, that won't be in the way.
On that theme, that would take care of the deadheads, like, partial trees and stuff like that, but is there a way to remove those, to lower those rock piles? Would they allow that?
We can double check. We haven't asked them about that. We've asked mainly about the vegetation that's stuck
Yeah.
in the ground sticking up. But I can add that to our list when we work with the DNR to see if we can reduce the height of those rock
And so,
piles.
I don't know if maybe staff could mark the height that would be permissible, and then maybe on the 24th, volunteers could go out there.
Take some of
They
that
could
down.
take some folks out there with pontoon boats or something, and,
A question on that, Mr. Chair.
yes, sir.
So do we have an idea how far below the surface of the water those rock cribs are when the river is up?
Yes, we do. I don't know off the top of my head, but we do know how high the river gets up to. Right now, it was supposed to be drawn down 14 feet. When I last talked to Kelly Zagzebski, they only put it down 10 feet.
Right.
So they didn't go down all the way. So that's a good regular water time. We can take it from where it is now and see how far they would be. So it is something I think we can figure out pretty easily. I don't have the number off the top of my head.
Because, I don't know, when the level is up to normal.
Yeah.
I don't know that they are a navigation hazard or what, or if they are,
I
they serve
think
as,
they are,
as,
yeah.
or if they serve as environment for species, that kind of thing, and the turtles love them, I don't know. They also have historical significance.
They do. Yes, they do.
So, I mean, that's something that we should look at carefully.
Yeah, I don't think we should destroy them, but the husband of one of our audience members could probably testify as to the navigational hazard to somebody with an outboard. What I'm hoping is that they can maybe lop off a couple of feet and, leave the rock pile there certainly, but, just lower it so it's not damaging boaters' equipment. Yes, sir.
I don't think we have authority to monkey with the Wisconsin River as far as the Corps of Engineers and all that. I don't think it's our call, really, is it?
No, we have to have all permission from the DNR and the right entities, yes. The DNR is who we start with, and then
Yeah,
they
we
work
can't
with us
just
from
walk
there.
out there and start throwing rocks around.
No, the only thing we can redo right now is remove garbage out of the river, and any loose logs floating, we can take out and move out, but we can't, like I said, we can't take anything out of the bottom. We can't even cut off the deadheads without that permission. So as far as the rock piles go, we definitely need permission or discussion on that.
Where are we getting that permission before we lose our window?
We have plenty of time. We have been in constant contact with the DNR on this they know that it's down, and they're working on the species control and moving species that are stuck in certain spots out, so they've been here and around. We just haven't gotten an official answer because we haven't gone out and pinpointed exactly. We've given them the concept of what we'd like to do, but they want us to go out and actually look at the spots.
We should
which-
have that by the next meeting then.
Yeah, I think we can.
Well, we're going to need it before, because we got the
Right,
citizen
if we have the
cleanup August
24th.
24th,
Yep.
so we got 3 weeks.
Yep.
Or if we can't, sorry, Mr.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
and I'm sorry. If we can't, we should have some way that we would have a way to anchor a buoy to that so that it's a visible hazard underneath here, and then a buoy would be telling us there's something here.
Yeah, I will check on that, because throughout the river, you have a lot of places like that, and I don't know that it's feasible to be able to mark all of them. I'll talk with the DNR on how they might sign that or what we might put at the boat landings, because most of the boats that go down the river will have a navigation system on there, and if they have the program that goes with that waterway, it shows where the channels are and where they should be going and the depths. I mean, if you're navigating a river or a lake, especially when you don't know it, you should know where those hazards are. But I don't know what that would do to our liability, but when we talk with the DNR, I'll ask them about that, because there isn't a way to mark everything as a hazard on the river, so.
We've got guests coming to this city all the time who have no idea that that's underneath there, and they'll put their boat in at a public landing, pay their fee, and rock it away up that river, only to have severe
Right.
damage
But
happen.
if you're a smart boater, you wouldn't
Maybe
go on
there-
a river you don't know without.
Should probably be some announcement at the boat dock saying, be careful that this is what's underneath this river at this point in time. I just think, yeah.
Just for, I'm sorry,
sir.
there's other the falls begin just north of the Scott Street Bridge, so it isn't just a matter of those so-called rock piles, but there are other issues with regard to the Wisconsin River. So if they're navigational hazards, true navigational hazards, I think we should look at it, but otherwise, I think I'll speak to the historic part. I think that they are really, the questions come in every day with regard to what role did they play in the history of our early Wausau, and that's quite an incredible story. And that whenever that does happen, that really does bring people's attention to early Wausau history. And we like to tell that story, and we should. And that's a constant reminder of that.
Very good. Anything else on that? Carry on.
The Barker Stewart Island Bridge, we've gotten a quote from a contractor to come in and remove the large debris. We did have, the city council approved a transfer of some funds to take care of this. This quote that we recently just got, our department's working in conjunction with Public Works, is a little bit over that, so they're kind of working that through with the contractor right now to see if we can get that cost down to what we originally transferred before coming back to the city council. The plan is to have that completed by October. They have, for there, the challenge will be of getting the crane that is being built specifically for this because of the large reach down to the debris off of the bridge, getting it out onto the bridge over to the island, and then the idea is we'll take all of the debris onto the island and probably reduce it in size and then truck it off that way. There's a little bit of challenges there, especially with the junior achievement plaques that were put where they were. That's the spot where, when this was done in the past and the large crane went in and took it out, that's where the crane sat and all the wood was. So we have a little bit more to work around this time. It is doable. The goal is, like I said, we're working through this contract. We should have that done within the next couple of weeks to know exactly what the price is, and then we'll schedule them out there. So September and October is when we will get that piece of equipment in. That will change the look of that bridge significantly, and then once we get it out, trying to figure out how, if there's anything that we can do to avoid pileups of the debris in the future, but that is a very wide area there, and the bridge is wide, and there's no good way of funneling the debris that comes down the river through one or two sections of that bridge without it getting caught up, so may just be something we have to do like we have over time. The boat launches will be done by September. They're almost done now, actually, so they'll probably be done by the end of August, and where we did some renovations to Schofield and Gilbert Park. We were rebuilding the piers and the docks, reconstructing and extending the concrete launches and approaches. And then we even reduced the size of one to be able to go out further because it was overly large for what it was being used for. And then we added additional riprap. So that's ahead of schedule. We've been able to work on that and get that almost done. The community cleanup on August 24th, we will have, they'll be focusing on shoreline cleanup, but I did talk with the group today that kind of started the idea. It's not a organized group per se that's putting this together. It is a gentleman from the Golden Sands Conservation, that's what he works in that area, but he actually is doing it as a private citizen working in conjunction with the different service groups, Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, amongst other service groups, of just coordinating, this is the day, if you want to work on the river, show up all day long. There's not a specific time. What they've asked of our department is that we put dumpsters and staging areas at Schofield Park and Gilbert Park for different things. So if they have tires, we'll have them put tires in one area, garbage in the dumpsters, wood that we need to haul off in a different area, and then our department will come and dispose of that debris and take that away. So really, what can citizens do is if they want to do it outside of the 24th, they can just call my office and we'll make sure that we have a staging area for them, or we'll keep those dumpsters in place so that we can keep removing that debris, and we just know that they're there. Or the 24th is a day that, like I said, there's a lot of service groups that are just showing up on the 24th and the 25th. I heard today, all weekend. Some people will bring in canoes, kayaks into the river where then they can take stuff out of the river itself. Rest will be walking the shore, picking up garbage, and It's really more of a, whatever you can find, pick up and put it in one of these two parks, and we will get rid of it for you.
Sounds great. Yes, sir.
Has UW Stevens Point, just over this past weekend, I find that in conjunction with the DNR, there are some rocks and some, the anthropological as well as a variety of other things that may be on that bed. I'm not sure how careful the DNR has been with regard to other smaller animals and other types of things that really may be more, within the framework of our early history. And I would be afraid of, leery of throwing that in the dumpster when that actually may have been, some type of a rarity, that somehow got missed through the years. So I'm not sure if that is part of the DNR's call with regard to the shoreline or not, but I've been made aware that there are some things that may be found along the shore that may be kind of rare, but I don't know that.
I saw, there was, somebody posted a photo of a very large, looked like a metal wheel, right off of Bull Falls Park
That's correct.
by the falls there, so, and was that part of the mill or whatever? And then there was another one nearby,
Right.
so.
And that specific wheel does need, I would think, special attention because that is right there and the grist mill was right there. So I'm not sure exactly what that wheel played in the history of that flour mill or grist mill, but evidently it was right there. So it's kind of important.
I'm
And
assuming-
this looks like it might be partially submerged or embedded and partially not. So is this a gray area with the DNR? Because, I mean, it's not like you're pulling something out of the deep muck, but you would have to disturb some silt to pull it up, so.
I would think if it was a historic artifact, it would be left. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll work with my contact with the cleanup day, and then with our DNR contact, maybe they'll be down there that day, I'm not sure, but I will work with them to see. And then we could possibly even set aside another pile, and we can sign the different piles to say, well, metal should go in a different versus garbage, metal should be stacked separately, but we could put like an artifact area, and we could go through that too, to make sure that we find something that may be an artifact before we throw it. But I'd be happy to take any suggestions, but I'll talk with the DNR. They've probably done this in other areas and probably had the same issues, or questions. I can ask them.
Very good. Launch into educational items.
Yes. Gotta get my list. Well, the first educational item is the Riverside Park update. Do you want to take those two emails you had included in the packet?
I just, I guess I included them, kind of informational, or things that came up at the last meeting that I got responses or additional information on, and if there are any questions, we can entertain them, but basically information that should have been shared, so. Just to clarify on the delay of our consideration of the further, kind of planning for the specific testing plan, it just came down to the matter of if we wanted the surveying to be done, that was going to take a couple of weeks. And then after Mr. Lassa, our consultant, didn't want to start placing potential test sites until he had the survey results. So the decision was made, and I thought it was wise to get the survey results to him and have him come back, and he's able to come to our next meeting, so should be able to proceed. But wanted to make that clear that there was I think it would have been fine, except we right at the end of our meeting, we said, oh, by the way, resurvey that property. So it kind of threw a small monkey wrench in the works.
Okay, the educational item 7B is update from the, oh, keep going.
Sure.
You had some, are you not taking?
You want to speak on one of these topics?
Yes, please.
Step up.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Polly. Tom Killian, 133 East Thomas Street, and I know, Mr. Peckham, that you had included some information about kind of the DNR process and the consulting process and so forth. I saw a response from Mr. Thompson in there, and, I think that the city of Wausau will appreciate kind of the history on some of these matters, because we weren't impugning the process in its entirety, but there certainly have been some historical issues in the past that I think we can use as examples just to see that it's a rather imperfect process. And I'd like to, for edification, direct you toward one from 1987 as a good example. Now, this dealt with the groundwater contamination that was tied to Wausau's drinking water contamination back in the 80s. It involved Wausau Chemical and some other parties. Now, what's interesting about that is you'll see that in around 1987, according to the Marshfield Herald, that the city of Wausau had hired RMT and G&M as consultants to kind of assess whether their role in that contamination had contributed to relevant groundwater contamination. And interestingly enough, the consultants said it did not. That was 1987. And what's interesting is when you look at the 1989 EPA record of decision, they didn't take the consultant's conclusion, okay? Now, that consultant was hired by the city, and the EPA probably assessed it and then put it aside and said, now you're a potentially responsible party. Okay, so it just shows you that what a specific consultant says or does, that's not gospel, okay? And that's a good one for the city. Now, incidentally, that was RMT, which is now TRC, and that just happens to be Waleco's consultant. So it's a small world after all, but that's a good example. And let's look at 2014. We had Miss Gutnick from the DNR here, and through an open records request, I was able to kind of see what she wrote after that. And she wrote in October of 2014 to Mr. Roseboom at the DNR. She said, quote, after the meeting here, I explained that if they were burning this sawdust, that the chemical composition of the pentachlorophenol would most likely change, and you wouldn't find pentachlorophenol in the neighborhood. I couldn't tell them what exactly it would change to. So that's the DNR internal email. Now, what's funny about that from a consultant perspective is that the people, Wausonians, had asked the DNR and requested unsuccessfully that because S&E and Crestline were burning roughly 400 tons per month of miscellaneous waste, we had been concerned that it wasn't likely just dioxin emitted, right? Like, raise your hand if you think it was. I doubt anybody will. But the point is that even the DNR in 2014 said they had no idea what the possible contaminant set was, right? That's the DNR. But Waleco's consultant, by some scientific miracle, apparently did, because they only tested for dioxin. So, we're not imputing the entire process, but let's be realistic about how imperfect that process can be, and don't just take our word for it, take the DNR's. So that's what I wanted to address on that front. And lastly, very briefly, I think it's very positive that the city is having the park surveyed. That seems like something that is necessary. However, now, when we get those property boundary lines, we would ask, and this is an easy thing and a matter of common sense. we would ask that those property lines, if they're bordering industrial properties, that we get that fenced off immediately, right? Because why the heck should kids playing in Riverside Park venture into former 3M and S&E demolition areas, right? Let's get those fences up so that kids and families aren't wandering into that area. That seems rather straightforward, it's common sense, and that would be one step forward to making the park a safer place. So I hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
Roll on.
Dog Park Special Committee update. They meet again after this at about 5:30. They're meeting. The group is moving forward with fencing. I am just waiting for an update from the fence company. We have 500 feet of fence that we went out and measured, a 6-foot fence from the
Great Lakes Cheese.
Great Lakes Cheese. I always get that mixed up with Wausau Chemical.
That's where I jumped in.
The Great Lakes Cheese site. It is in very good shape, but we're asking them to tell us what that cost will be to take down the fence. Yep.
Well, when I pasted off the other day, I figured my pace is about 3 feet in length, and I was at about 960 paces.
Well-
No, I was at the equivalent of 960 feet. Yeah.
Well, there's two different sections of
There's
fence.
two different sections. One is like
Yep.
vine covered and one is clear.
Right. So right now, though, so when we went out, that's something for the dog park to consider, but when we went out, so there's 1,000 feet total of that fence. There's 1,010 feet, I think we found out when we took the wheel out there and measured. 500 feet is directly in front of Great Lakes Cheese. The other 500 feet goes beyond Great Lakes Cheese property onto the property of, what is the kayak place. So that,
I started pacing
Yep.
at what seemed to be, where they stopped mowing.
yeah.
At the kayak place. I don't know if their property extends further, but I didn't pace until that point.
Yeah, there is a section that goes onto there, and I would have to go to look at my notes to see how much goes over that. But the other part is that vine-covered fence significantly, or it adds, this will be a policy or a question, I think, of this committee if we wanted to move that forward or look at that. But it significantly blocks, because it's very well covered with that vine, blocks what's behind it. So when you take take down Great Lakes Cheese building, that will open, if you take that fence down, it's going to open that trail completely up to that industrial area. If we wanted to do that, to reuse the fence, we could. When we walked out there, I guess as staff, we were recommending just the 500 feet that's not vine covered and ends at the Great Lakes Cheese site, and the other 500 feet to leave in place for now. Otherwise, it's going to make, right now that vine cover makes that trail really nice to walk on. You open that up, it's going to significantly change that. But I guess I'll take the direction of the committee when they, meet and we want to do that. Also taking that vine off of that fence is going to be a very tough task, but it's up to the group if they want to do that. So that's where we're at with that. We're getting a temporary sign up for the committee. And then the group is talking, they're still working on contacting different businesses and foundations for fundraising and talking about other special events. Tonight, they'll be looking at some rules signage to try to get that in place. Looks like, though we won't be opening it this year, the idea is to get it up for next year. Do you want anything to add? Sorry. Cough.
No, other things we'll talk about tonight are fundraising. We've got significant amount of money that has been pledged specifically for the fence itself. Others have pledged money for benches. And there's some that have shown interest but have not, said what they want to do or how much they want to give or anything yet. So we're kind of floating out there. And maybe looking at wintertime, stomp, once we get a fence up, might have a snow stomp out there, just to have a real soft opening on the snow, so.
Very good. Anything else? Nothing else on Dog Park, right?
Nope.
Okay. Roll on.
All right, for project updates, River Life Park. We have our grand opening on Wednesday, this Wednesday, August 7th at 10 a.m. So we hope that the Parks Committee can come to the park. We are, continuing to work on the maintenance and operations of the park and observing how it's being used. We have the seasonal full-time staff down there for the summer, like I've mentioned earlier. And we're providing maintenance as well as working with Bricks. They are responsible for their area per their lease around their building. And, well, go ahead.
I didn't want to stop you in mid-thought,
That's okay.
but just to add on to that, there are some maintenance issues right now. Maybe they've been cleared up since I saw them, but the gas-fired fireplace won't light right now. It didn't light the other night when I was there.
It was working just fine, so this is the first I've heard that it wasn't. You have to wait about 30 seconds for it to come on.
We've waited plenty of time. It wouldn't come
Okay.
on. The pilot light is not illuminated, and
Okay,
so
this is the first
it's-
I've heard of it, so.
Okay, so that's not working, and then also the lighting on the bridge, the internal lighting, the white light, is that off for a reason?
No.
Or is it disabled or dysfunctional?
It's supposed to be functional. The electricians are working on it. It got brought to our attention when our playground manufacturer was here to take pictures at night, and
Okay.
there was a few lights not on. So the Van Aert are the electrician on the site. They are
Okay.
working on it.
And there are a few of the marker lights, especially one right near the bridge, that isn't illuminated too, so we need to have a survey crew go down there and see which ones aren't lit, and some are, some aren't. Most of them are, of course.
Yeah.
The timing of when they come on, I've been on there for 2 nights where they finally came on, and I thought they should have been on earlier than that because it was quite dark already, and then all of a sudden, this must be a light sensing switch of sorts.
Yeah, they're supposed to turn on at dusk, so they're supposed to sense when it's dark enough to turn on. So when our electricians are down there, I can ask them to look at that sensor.
And the water's not flowing on the First Street Bridge. There's a water flow that's supposed to come across.
That will not flow all the rivers down because that comes out of
Oh,
the river, and the river's too low right now with the drawdown,
Okay,
so that
very
pump
good.
is turned off for right now.
thank you very much.
Other things, the sidewalk area immediately in front of Bricks, I noticed that that's I would say, it seems like visitors have been very conscientious in using the bins and whatnot for their trash. For the most part, there's always somebody down there that just can't seem to, walk 10 feet. But the sidewalk area in front of Bricks seems to be particularly prone to accidental spills. Probably kids turn around and go, and fall down, and there goes their thing. Is there a hose, like right out front at Bricks for them to go out and hose down that sidewalk every morning?
They're responsible for getting that. We just got them keys, well, we got them keys about a week ago for the hose bibs.
Okay.
So they should be putting a hose out there and doing that as part of their cleaning. Our staff is also going to be working in a routine power washing of that area also to help them out, but that is something that they'll be working on. And so when I talk to the owner, they'll be getting a hose. bib.
The drinking fountains aren't operational. I don't know why that is, because,
Yep.
the irrigation systems are and whatnot, but.
Yep.
And then lastly, as we talked about, just so everybody else is aware, there's a small problem, but this is the kind of problem that only gets worse over time, and that's of people discarding their chewing gum on the ground. It's one thing to be doing it on the sidewalk. I guess you can scrape that away without too much concern, but doing it on the poured-in-place areas, the playground and the fitness area, could be problematic. And I did look into a company that produces those surfaces, and they say probably the best way to take that out is with dry ice applied until it is just hard and you just chip it off. I don't know if that's foolproof or what, but it is a potential problem if it just turns into a buildup, and it could really mar a really beautiful, thing that we've got going there. So I hope that somehow gets, either that or some other best practice is worked into the standard maintenance. Because when I talked to a fellow down there, he was like, I don't know what to do about that,
Well, you probably are seasonal. Yeah. Yeah, we're aware of it.
David?
Yes, sir. Tons of great comments about this park. It's extraordinary. Why I did have one visitor mention to me that the timing device for that area where you can, I'm sorry, I can't think of how to call it, but you create, it's a loop that you run and you time yourself.
Oh, the challenge course? Mhm.
Challenge course, I believe that timer might be out of order too, so have someone take a peek at that. They said they were trying to get that timer to work, and I'm not even seeing it, so I don't know what to call it or how it works,
Yeah,
but
they have to, that's also one, I mean, it doesn't take as long as the fire pit, but you have to hit it once, and then you hit it a second time, and then you'll wait for the red light, red, green, yellow light to come on, and they have to do it. The
Just be
problem we
sure.
found with the challenge course is that the kids don't take turns doing it, that one kid will start it, and then another kid will come up and hit it and start going themselves, so
Oh.
they don't regulate themselves to let one kid go at a time. It's constantly being hit, but we'll take a look at it just to make sure.
see if it is
But,
functional
yeah.
for one thing. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
as far as the drinking fountains, just want to address that. That is something that was on the punch list for the park. The issue was the contractor put in a water meter underground that does not meet code. So they are in the process of, they have the above-ground water meter. Apparently, it only comes in white or black, and we wanted green. That was what spec, so they are painting it green, and it will be put in, and that's something that will be done. The contractor has the water meter, they're working it into their schedule. We're hoping it's done within the next couple of weeks, and that's the one by the bridge to be on. The one by the wharf that was part of Phase 1 that's not working along with the showers is because during the Samuels project, the water line was broke and busted, and so it's a different issue from the contractor of the park than that. That's something that engineering is looking at separate.
And sorry, just to keep on, piling on here, but also, I'd really like to see some nice prominent signage at the two poured-in-place areas saying that food, drink, and chewing gum are not allowed. Only allowable thing is water.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's just, that's another thing is, people spilling ice cream or food or soda pop, and it attracts grime and then doesn't wash off easily. And we just have to tell people, you can't have it on this surface.
Yeah, we're working on a park sign, a rule sign that actually says what the playground is built for as well, like age groups. The problem is it's, we don't have somebody down there monitoring, so we don't have somebody, so you can put it on the rule sign, but it's right next to bricks,
You just hope
they're going to have it on there. Right. The one other thing that did get brought up to me, as long as we're talking about River Life, just for you to keep in mind, I am meeting with the city police department tomorrow morning to talk about just concerns and comments in general of the whole area and other parks, is I've had 2 parents come up to me, so not a lot, there's a lot of people that use it, but 2 parents come up to me with concerns of, we have the smoking sign there, that you can't smoke within 50 feet of a playground, but they're concerned with, especially with WOW next to it, of the ability to have the alcohol next to the playground, and they don't think the two match. So, right now, and this isn't something to discuss right now, but it's something for consideration that we might want to look forward. The only park that has any type of alcohol restriction is the 400 block, where you can't have alcohol in it until after 4 p.m. Any other city park or county park, you can have alcohol anywhere in the park. So really, therefore, a parent could come with a 6-pack or a bottle of wine, sit down at the park and drink while their children are playing. It is allowed. It's not something that is not allowed. So that concern came up. It's something that I'm talking to the PD about, amongst other things, that, we may, as a city, want to look at the ordinance of the parks and possibly not restrict drinking in the parks. I don't think that's the option, but I think maybe restricting areas of where it can be. In other cities I've worked in, you could drink in any of our parks as long as it was in a covered shelter, amphitheater. There was designated areas where you'd always have your family picnics, weddings, or if it was a special event, it just has to go with that special use permit. So River Life Park per se doesn't have a shelter. If you did that, then therefore that park necessarily, since it's really just a playground, may not allow it. Now, you could add, I know there was comments about the wharf and the fire pit, but that could be something that could be spelled out. But nothing to vote on right now, just food for thought.
But just if they're bringing alcohol from WOW, that's another issue, and
That's a
that,
separate issue, yeah.
just so that,
Yeah, that would be a violation.
Right.
They
That's a strict,
walk in by their own, it's
Correct.
different
right,
ballgame.
that's a different issue,
Yeah.
but, and I'm not sure of the space between Wow and the park, what that, I don't think that the park goes right up to Wow, so if
It does.
it does.
Yeah. Yeah, they can't bring it from WOW in there, but the concern was that they're drinking in WOW and then intoxicated people coming into the park. Now that you can't stop. If they're doing something, you call you call the police. But if they've been drinking in WOW and then they have more alcohol in their car and they want to come out and drink, they can. Or, it's just, I'm just relaying the concerns, so we're just looking at it in general.
Something to
as
watch
something
and
to
be
t-
aware of,
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, WOW is like, 200 feet away from bricks and the playground, so I don't see it as an issue. It's, they're on its own.
No, but it's the
Shouldn't
fact
be,
that
yeah.
that our ordinance allow any alcohol in any of our parks. So you could, as a parent, come with a friend and a six-pack and sit and watch your kids playing and be drinking on the
Oh,
playground.
okay, I thought the concern from the people that came to you was about the playground area.
Well, they mentioned WOW and they mentioned that, but then they mentioned just the alcohol in general. Because when I told them, well, technically you can drink in any of our parks, well, then that was bring up a different issue for them.
I think
so.
we'll always have those people, but, we've had this discussion at length before and about what we think the parks are, how we should manage them and not go too far, so.
So you'll have a conversation with the law enforcement that routinely walks that for keeping that on their radar? Thank
Correct,
you.
yep.
good. Playground replacements?
All right, yeah, I apologize, I had a typo here. I keep getting Pleasant Prairie and Pleasant View Park mixed
Might be
up.
one of those in Minnesota someplace.
No, there's Pleasant Prairie in southern Wisconsin.
Oh,
I just-
okay.
I don't know why.
I thought it was a throwback to previous employment.
No,
Pleasant View,
so we are going to be updating Schofield, Pleasant View, Brockmire, and Oak Island Parks this summer. One thing we wanted to give you an update on is that JoJo's Jungle will have a groundbreaking on Tuesday. I'll send it out. It's August 14th. I want to find it here before I tell you wrong. August 14th at 3 p.m. They're going to have a small groundbreaking. It's more just JoJo's Jungle wanted it. We'll have the big event when it's done, and when it's open, we'll do a grand opening. That will be started shortly. They just moved the transformer. WPS was extremely behind schedule with all the power outages, so now they finally got the transformer moved, and Myron can move in there. Schofield Park, wanted to give you one update on that. We've been asked by the Public Works Department to put a hold on installing that new playground until we know where the new water line is going to go, or they have to reroute one of their water lines when they move their water plant. And it goes, right now, the water line's directly underneath the playground. So they don't want us to put a new playground on top of it and then have to take it out. So it may not, that one might not go in. We're going to order it and get it here this fall, but it might not go in this fall. Pleasantville will go in, Georgia's Jungle will go in, and Oak Island Playground will go in as well. So those are still moving forward. And then I already touched on the boat launches at Schofield Park. Stewart Park, the footings for the southeast pillar are going in tomorrow. I just got that message before I left my office today, and that they've been asked, our crews will then be uncovering the northeast pillar this week for them to begin work on that as well. So that's moving forward. It took a while for the contractor to get there, but they're there and working on it now. Then we have some small updates to our parks, some reconstruction work at the Little League Diamond at Memorial Park, the surface recoding at 3M Park. We are going to be placing some pickleball lines. We were waiting to talk with the pickleball club as to how they wanted that laid out with, they're going to be doing a project in Marathon Park of adding some pickleball courts for us. The cleanup, and then we're doing some maintenance now that our ball diamonds are pretty much done. For this season, we're going to do some maintenance before fall, and then, as I mentioned, our urban forestry program, we're extremely behind schedule because of all of the storms that we've been having to clean up after our tree crews. They are about 85% city crews, but they are 15% county, and we had a straight line win at Big Old Plain Park two Tuesdays ago that took out about 1,000 trees. We moved them all off our street tree program for two or three full days. They did clean up down there to get our park back open.
it looked like somebody had to do a lot of work on the Mountain Bay Trail too. There were quite a few trees down
Did have
there.
quite a few trees down there, yep. We had some homeowners helping there to at least get them off the trail, and then our guys went and cleaned them up afterwards. But, yeah, the trees down have been a lot this year. We had a branch fall on a camper last Sunday at Marathon Park. We had one tree fall on a car at Delzeville Clare. Nothing with that straight line wind happened at Big Old Plain, which was very good. And then the city damage we had with the storm 2 weeks ago. So working on keeping caught up.
A question on the EAB ash tree treatments, I just see it up there. Is it feasible, and financially viable to offer, like for me as a private citizen, to contact the city and say, I would like my, private ash tree in my front yard treated, and I will pay for that? Is that something you think we could add to our program, or just muddy everything up?
Right now, we have stayed off of private trees and private lots for any reason, whether that's something that they need to get. We have homeowners that need to get private contractors in to do their private trees. If it's hanging over a city right-of-way or an alley, or if it's in the boulevard, then it's something we'll take on and address. But getting into the private homeowner's property, there's liabilities concerned that our risk management has issues with, and as well as we just don't have the staff right now to do that, so.
I don't think it would go well if the city was seen as competing with private enterprise. Keep rolling.
All right, last thing I have is a program update, and mainly about the pool. I wanted to give you an update is, we are keeping Memorial open until August 18th. The other pools will close on August 11th. We tried extremely hard, even offering incentives to our lifeguards to try to keep Memorial Pool open until the 25th, even just to have that Saturday. And we only have 5 staff available to do it, and that's not enough to have the pool open safely with all the features that our pools have now. So we're working on ways of trying to figure that out for next year, that we try to keep people longer. We worked on it this year. We thought we had it to go to the 25th, and we just don't have the staff, so.
Oh, we talked about that last year, too. Was there more non-scholastic people that were available to fill those positions?
No, the majority of our staff are either college students, so they're already back in college by then, or they're high school students that are in a sport. And so we had 5, and we even tried to give them a bonus. We tried to give them some extra incentives, and we only have 5 people that say they can commit. That week is a big week also for our high school students, that family vacations that they haven't taken all summer right before school starts and stuff like that. So we brainstormed with our staff this morning to try to figure out in our hiring process next year, how do we say, you will work until this date, and, and have that.
Yeah, but what about non-student lifeguards? The call going out for those to fill those dates? Because we're right in the middle of the hot season right there, and to see the pools closed is really a surprise to our residents.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be certified lifeguards, so,
Right, yeah.
I
mean,
Yeah,
these
no.
college
Haven't
students
been.
who are certified, do they have to be recertified every year? And can they, eventually, they're no longer college students, they're out in the general public.
Right, yep.
Put the call out.
Yeah, I don't know if Karen has asked, past staff, but they do, certifications have to be updated every 2 years. So it's, if they're, within a year, then they could. So I can ask her. I
Yeah.
don't know that that's been tried, but.
Let's
we
put the
can-
call out for next year early.
Yep,
So you've got 2 pools closing on August 11th. Memorial's going to be open until August 18th. Then it's
Yep.
going to close, and then they're going to have the doggone pool party.
right. So the water will stay in Memorial Pool for 1 more week for that doggone pool party that will be on the 25th.
Okay.
And then we will have a report for you probably in October on how the summer went for the pools with the free day attendance, the number of passes we've had. We had quite a few extra special events this year that were pretty well attended, so we'll give you the updates on that. And then looking at our schedule for next year, we're going to look at revamping some of the things with our swimming lessons to get more people in there to offer a little bit more to the community, knowing that that's a need. And then talking about some of the issues we've had with staffing. Even Weston Pool, the Y, I'm on the operating board for the Y, the lifeguard staffing issue in general, throughout the whole year is one that we're all struggling with, so, but we'll keep working on it, so.
Very good. Under future agenda items other than Riverside Park testing, does anybody have anything top of mind right now? As always, let us know if you do. We've settled the next meeting date. Alderman Smith would like to make a motion. We could probably go home. He has moved to adjourn. Is there a second? Mr. Neal, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Plowed a lot of ground there.